Hi viewers, welcome to my channel. Today in this video we will be discussing about data types in Python. So how do we communicate to an interpreter that we want to use a specific variable? So as a human we understand if we want to add two numbers num1 plus num2, we know these numbers has to be of an integer or real values. But how do we communicate the same to an interpreter? So to communicate to the interpreter, we use data types. So if we define an integer data type, for example, for num1 and num2, then interpreter understands that we can perform numerical operations on these two variables num1 and num2. So that's how we communicate it to the interpreter. Similarly, if a user wants to perform string operation like string concatenation and all on variables, so we have to define the variables as a string str1, str2 as a strings. So on a high level overview, we can say the data types as classes and classes and variables we are using are instances of these classes. So here is an standard type hierarchy on Python 3 for the data variables. So here if we want to use the number variables, these are different data types we can use. So integral, real and complex. Integral we have integers and booleans. And coming to the real, we have floating point numbers. And we can use the complex numbers as well. So and coming to the sequences, we have mutable and immutable data types where strings, uh, tuples and bytes come under immutable data types. And list and byte arrays are mutable data types. So difference between mutable and immutable data types is if we assign a value to a variable, then we cannot change this value. If we cannot change these values, then it is called an immutable data type. If we can change a value once the value is assigned, then we can call it as a mutable data type. We can see more examples in the coming videos on what is an mutable and what is immutable data types and how we can assign values, and we can see those examples in the later videos. And similarly, we can have one more category called set types. So here we have two set types. One is a set and another is a frozen set. So frozen set is nothing but another variation of set which is immutable. So similarly, we have one more data type called dictionaries. This is more or less similar to the hash tables. I have taken above diagram from Wikipedia website. So here is the link. You can have a quick look into it. So let's go deep into those each data type category. Numbers can be broadly classified into integers, uh, floating point numbers, and boolean. So integer data types are having the uh, integer integral numbers where we will not be using the decimal point to it. For float, we will be using the real numbers with the decimal float. Bool is true or false. And we have one more category called complex numbers. Mostly these will be used for the scientific computations where we can define a variable using a plus jb or bj. So these kind of variables also we can define in numbers category. We will look into each category. So coming to int, we have defined an integer number, the whole number, and when we print the data type of integer, we will get integer class. Similarly, for floating point, we have defined a floating point number, and when we print the data type of it, we will get class of floating point number. So here we have a function called type. So when we use this type on any of the variables, we will get what is the class that corresponding to that particular variable. It returns to the class of a variable. Similarly, if we go to complex numbers, so here I have defined a complex number, and when I get type of a complex number, I will get as uh, complex number class. Similarly, for Boolean, we have Boolean class. Coming to the sequences, we have sequences are broadly classified into uh, these strings. So these are frequently used data types in Python. So sequence is nothing but an ordered collection of data. Same, it can be of the same or different data types in Python. And we can have a tuple also. Strings and tuple are immutable data types. Similarly, list is a mutable data type. So coming to string, we can define a string using three ways. One is with the single quotes, double quotes, or triple quotes. So whatever way we assign a value to a string, we will get class of string when we use type on these variables. Similarly, in string we can use substring of a particular index. We can refer any value using index. So here I'm using string str1 of 0 to 4. So it will return the index from 0 to 4, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, and 3. So I'll get up to here. So this is being returned when we use str of this is called indexing. And we can use indexing to retrieve a substring of larger string. Similarly, we have for list, we can define list using open and closing brackets, where these data types in these brackets can be of any data type. So if we see, for example, here, right, we have a variable list of type leaves, and in the brackets we have one which is an integer data type, my name which is a string, and 93.5 is a floating point number. So this is a valid uh, assignment of list in Python. If we use print statement to list, it will give the value. So here I have given LST of 1. So indexing starts with 0, and the list of 1 is this one. So it will print Chaitanya Sagar using the print statement. So LST1 is referring to Chaitanya Sagar. So if I use an assignment operator and I modified it to Sagar, and when I print the whole list, it prints an modified list here. See, it is a integer Sagar, and it is a floating point number. This is possible with the list because list is a mutable database. So we'll see tuple here. So tuple also will take the same. Tuple can be declared in open and closing braces, where here we have defined a variable tup of data type as a tuple, and one is an integer, Chaitanya Sagar is a string, and 93.5 is a floating point number. When we print top of 1, it prints the Chaitanya Sagar. And when we try to modify tup1 to Sagar, we'll get an error. Here it is saying cannot assign to a functional call, because tuple is a immutable database in data type. Tuple is an immutable data type, and we cannot change values once it is assigned. If we try to modify any value, we will get cannot assign to a functional call error. Similarly, if we go to set, set is an unordered collection of items. So it is represented in braces. So here is an example of set. Here, if you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, these three are repeating. But when we try to print set, right, it will give only unique values. Even if it is the repeating, when we try to assign it will only give values that are unique. Unique. in the set. And since it is an unordered collection, we cannot use index to refer any of these values. Um, we cannot refer set one of one like this. We cannot refer set one of one since a set is an unordered collection of unique items. We can use set operations like union, intersection using these sets. Coming to the dictionaries, dictionaries are widely used in Python, especially when we use data science. This is one of the widely used data type. So dictionaries can be declared using curly braces with the key 1, value 1, key 2, value 2, etc. And if you see an example here, dictionary, we have defined key as ID and value as 1. Second key as name and Chaitanya Sagar as a name. And third key as a score and the value is 93.5. So when we print dictionary of name, it takes this key and prints the value corresponding to this key. Similarly, if we try to access any of the keys that are not available in the dictionary, we will get this error, key error. So here we are trying to print year which is not there in the dictionary and it throws a key error as an it didn't find. We can convert between data types in Python and we have functions like int, float, str, etc. to convert between data types. We'll take an example. Here we want to convert an integer to a floating point. So here we are calling a float on an integer and result is a floating point. Similarly here we want to convert a floating point number into an integer. So the decimal points will be truncated and an integer will be returned. Similarly here we want to convert a string into an integer. So here we got an integer. Similarly here is the list and we want to convert this list into set. So here a set is returned. Here we want to convert a string into a list. Here a list is returned. One thing we want to make sure is these are compatible values. For example, if we want to convert a string like 10p into an integer, it throws an error because p is not compatible with the int function. So that's all on the data types. In the next video, we will be discussing about operators in Python. If you like my video, please like, share and subscribe to my channel. Please do let me know your feedback in the comments. Thank you.